So good morning, my name is Jocelyn Young and I'm the CEO of the Surrey Board of Trade and Acting Executive Director of the South Surrey and White Rock Chamber of Commerce. We are merging and soon I will not have that tongue twister. Thank you for attending today's event, the Provincial Response to U.S. Tariffs, a discussion with Minister Rick Glumac, BC Minister of State for Trade. We begin by acknowledging that we are on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, specifically the Kwantlen, Katsi, Coquitlam, Kakite, Semiahmoo, and Tsawwassen First Nations. As well, I acknowledge the Inuit and Métis Nations people who live and work on these territories. Today has been declared a day of mourning in memory of the tragic incident during the Lapu Lapu Day celebration, where 11 lives were lost and many others remain in critical condition. We stand together with the victims, their families, the Filipino community in this time of grief. Please join me now in a moment of silence to honor those that we have lost. May we continue to offer our support, our compassion, and our prayers to the victims, their families, and to one another as we begin the healing process together as a community. If this is your first time attending a Surrey Board of Trade or South Surrey White Rock Chamber of Commerce event in association with the province, let me introduce us to you. We are an independent, nonprofit organization. We are a concierge of connections for the Surrey and White Rock business community, where we deliver a diversified service portfolio of business development, support for international trade, government advocacy, and workforce development. We support business and attract business, which is now more vital than ever. Before we dive into the program, I would like to acknowledge some special guests that we have in the audience. The Minister of State for Trade, Mr. Rick Glumac. Her Worship, the Mayor of the City of Surrey, Brenda Locke. Moira Ni Crystal, Vice Consul of Ireland in Vancouver. There she is. I got a lesson in how to pronounce that. And Elizabeth Modell, Downtown Surrey BIA. Thanks for coming. Please also help me welcome the Surrey Board of Trade Board Directors who are here with us today. Our Chair Rory Morgan from KSW Lawyers. Is Sasha here? Sasha was supposed to be here. No Sasha, but we do have Roger Steers from RJC Engineering. Thanks for coming. Nothing like your boss watching you work. Okay, so Surrey and White Rock's business communities are diverse, with small and medium-sized enterprises serving as the backbone of both our local and national economies. Large corporations and employers also call this region home, making us a diverse and powerful economic force. In today's complex geopolitical climate, these businesses face mounting challenges, both domestic and international, but their resilience remains strong. However, unpredictable shifts in trade relationships, particularly with key partners like the US, have introduced instability that local businesses cannot easily absorb. Tariffs, whether retaliatory or protectionist, disrupt supply chains, raise costs, and undercut competitiveness, especially for manufacturers and exporters in our region. For Surrey and White Rock, whose economies are increasingly trade dependent, the consequences are real: lost contracts, deferred investments, and rising uncertainty. As we look to build a more secure and sustainable economic future, predictable, rules-based trade frameworks are essential. We have some great speakers today to help us dissect these important issues. Our keynote speaker was first elected as the MLA for Port Moody Coquitlam, now Port Moody Burquitlam, in 2017. He serves as BC's representative to the Pacific Northwest Economic Region and has previously served as the Parliamentary Secretary for Technology, as well as the Premier's liaison to Washington State. Most recently, he was appointed Minister of State for Trade in November 2024. Please help me welcome Honourable Rick Glumac.
Well, thank you so much, Jocelyn, for the introduction. Jocelyn and I go way back to my early days as a city councillor at the local Lower Mainland Local Government Association. And I keep running into you everywhere, like every couple of years, and it's pretty awesome. So, so thank you for the acknowledging, the Lapu Lapu tragedy and the times that we're in. Thank you for acknowledging that we're gathered on the territory of the Coast Salish people. Thank you to the Surrey Board of Trade for hosting this event today. And I'm joined today by some of my colleagues, Lisanne Jackson, who's the manager of the trade policy team in the ministry, Adriana Carrillo, who's a senior manager for export services, Chelsea Sang, who is the head of advisory services of the Export Navigator program, and there's one more. I don't have that. Service Canada. So thank you. See, we got to coordinate better between federal and provincial there. So, so as BC's Minister of State for Trade, my goal is to champion and fight for British Columbia's exporters, businesses of all sizes and all sectors that are contributing to the strength of BC's economy, and ensuring that people and communities throughout BC have good jobs and a strong and prosperous future. I also I work with economic organizations to identify opportunities to expand and diversify exports, and that's a big reason why I'm excited to be here today to join you as you explore the challenging but rewarding path to bring your products and services to global markets. The Honourable Diana Gibson, Minister of Jobs, Economic Development and Innovation, and I are both here to support you as you take your businesses to the next level. And we know that running a business is not easy. There are a lot of challenges that you face dealing with unique and shifting regulations in new markets, cultural and language differences, currency fluctuations, global inflation, and now, of course, the challenges with Trump's tariffs and the instability associated with that. One thing I can tell you is that it doesn't matter what the U.S. decides to do. BC will continue to secure its own future by diversifying and finding new markets for our own goods. Strengthening our economy and responding as part of Team Canada to unjustified tariffs. We're standing up to defend our industries, defend well-paying jobs and workers. And so we have a three-part response, and you see it right there. Respond, strengthen, diversify. For respond, we're standing strong with the rest of Canada, supporting nationally coordinated retaliation, and we're taking our own actions, like pulling American liquor from BC liquor stores and ensuring that government and crown corporations are buying Canada first. And second, strengthen. We're strengthening our provincial economy through actions like speeding up permitting, reducing trade barriers between provinces. This is one of the main reasons we introduced the Economic Stabilization and Tariff Response Act. We're debating this right now in the legislature. So this time-limited legislation allows Cabinet to act quickly on matters of interprovincial trade and government procurement directives. British Columbia has been a leader in efforts to reducing internal trade barriers, even before this tariff threat, advocating for a mutual recognition agreement and being one of the provinces with the least number of exceptions. We're also one of the founding parties of the New West Partnership Trade Agreement. This is a regional trade agreement that covers more economic sectors and has fewer exceptions than a Canadian Free Trade Agreement. There's been some really good momentum that we're seeing and working with other provinces to protect Canadians against the potential economic attacks from our neighbors to the south. Third, diversify. We're driving forward our work and the federal government's work to find new buyers and suppliers in other markets for BC goods. With the emergence of the U.S. As an unreliable trading partner, the need to find new markets and reduce our reliance on the US market is now at a critical high. We know that Surrey has so many strengths in many sectors, including advanced manufacturing, agri-tech, food processing, clean tech, ICT, health tech, and healthcare. The companies here are an important part of the provincial economy. In 2024, BC exported more than $54 billion worth of goods and over $37 billion worth of services. And the service exports, something that we don't talk as much about, but that's growing 13% year over year right now. Trade is a crucial element of BC's economy. It creates jobs, opens business opportunities, benefits the people who live and work in BC. 2 years ago, before all of the Trump tariffs and all of this talk, BC launched our trade diversification strategy, which addresses the need for a diversified trading base for British Columbia. And under this strategy, we're creating trade and investment opportunities in new markets while expanding in existing markets and increasing the number and diversity of exporters in BC. And this strategy is championed by over 50 trade and investment representatives in 14 key markets right now, including the UK, EU, and the Asia Pacific. And we're actively working on expanding this strategy, enhancing it in light of the current situation. So a few examples of how our trade team has helped some export businesses from Surrey. One example is PowerTech Labs. It's a subsidiary of BC Hydro, but an independent company. Operates one of North America's largest clean energy testing and R&D facilities. If you ever have a chance to tour there, they got this amazing futuristic looking electric thing in there that's it's pretty impressive. Their work in hydrogen fueling infrastructure, battery systems, and EV technology has positioned them as a key export partner in new markets such as Germany, Taiwan, South Korea, India, Japan, the US, and the Netherlands. So they've been actively involved in our trade team's international clean energy program, and they've been included in missions and buyer delegations tied to BC's hydrogen strategy. KB Honey is Canada's oldest honey brand, and it's been a family-owned business since 1884. Our trade team has worked with KB on trade opportunities in China, Japan, Korea, and Southeast Asia. Then there's Naturally Homegrown Foods Limited and Hard Bite Chips, a premium snack food company that produces small batch handcrafted style potato and root vegetable snacks. Our trade team has helped Hard Bite with export opportunities in Asia, Europe, and Mexico through trade shows, B2B meetings, and trade programs. One way we're supporting BC exporters is through programs like the Trade Accelerator Program, or TAP, a program designed to help small and medium-sized enterprises develop a market entry plan for a new market. We also offer the Export Navigator Program, which helps businesses become export ready by providing export advisors who offer free services to BC businesses. We're expanding our connections and showcasing BC's high quality goods and services through our trade missions, which are in the process of planning right now. Trade missions to places like the European Union, Japan, Korea, and Southeast Asia. We just had our Deputy Minister of JEDI go to Germany and Norway and participating in Hanover Messe and engaging with European industry leaders. And he brought 22 BC companies and universities to the event with him as well. And this event is the largest trade show for industrial and energy technologies. And that's the largest number of BC companies to ever participate in this trade show. So that's the kind of work that we're doing right now in terms of bringing more and more companies to these opportunities. These companies represent some of the best clean and innovative technology companies in BC, including AI and machine learning, It's also important to know that Canada has free trade agreements with more than 50 international markets right now. And that represents more than 2/3 of global GDP. In fact, Canada is the only G7 country with free trade agreements with every other G7 country. These include markets in some of our top trading partners, the EU, Japan, and South Korea. These free trade agreements provide much needed certainty and recourse when disputes arise. Sometimes some people decide not to follow trade agreements, but for most of the world, they are followed, and they help businesses lower their costs through duty-free access for imports and exports, and removing non-tariff trade barriers and improving certainty and transparency. We know that there can be some confusion how these free trade agreements work. And we have, when we look at the data, it shows that most of the free trade agreements are actually underutilized. So that's why our team is here, our ministry is here to help you understand how these free trade agreements can benefit your business and provide you with more information on our export programs and services. We're working hard to get this information out to businesses, and that's part of what we're doing, setting up workshops like this today. You can also look at our website, britishcolumbia.ca, pretty easy to remember. There's a lot of information on there. You'll also find a business forum there where you can share information with us on the impacts of specific tariffs and trade barriers. And our staff will be able to follow up with you directly on that. Oh, didn't follow the rules. That's okay. Let us know how we can help your business access new markets and how trade barriers are impacting your ability to trade within Canada. Oh my goodness. In the legislature, you get fined for this kind of stuff, but I don't think Jocelyn has that ability. So well, maybe. So we know that our economy relies on trade. That's why we're standing together with all British Columbians. No matter what happens south of the border, we know we are stronger together. So I wish all of you the greatest success, and we look forward to partnering with you as you move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Glumac. I know the audience is going to get their questions ready for you for during the Q&A. And of course, everyone's double checking their phones because the mayor is going to give me a bylaw to charge a fee every time that happens. So, okay. So I am now going to call upon Lisa-Ann Jackson, Trade Policy Manager with BC's Ministry of Jobs, Economic Development and Innovation, who will provide an overview of trade agreements and what the recent U.S. tariff and policy developments mean for Canadian importers, exporters, and investment attractors. Come on up. All right.
This handy dandy little presentation. So, hello everyone, my name is Lisa-Ann Jackson. I'm a trade policy manager with the Ministry of Jobs, Economic Development and Innovation, which we love to call and tell everybody is JEDI. We've got the coolest name of all the ministries. Today I'm going to begin by providing an overview of Canada's free trade agreements and the advantages they offer to Canadian or BC exporters, along with some of the resources available to help you explore new markets and diversify trade. My presentation will point you to a number of resources, and I will then get into a discussion of what many of you are probably here for, which is BC-US trade, US actions, and BC's response. Today is one of a series of events we're holding around the province this spring. So let's begin with BC's trade priorities. They involve encouraging trade diversification, attracting investment, and enhancing market access for BC's exports. BC is focused on building an inclusive, sustainable, and innovative economy, increasing awareness and helping business take advantage of these opportunities, which is what we're doing here, helping underrepresented export groups and small and medium-sized businesses, and ensuring BC's interests are protected and advanced in various trade negotiations and disputes. There's no doubt that we're operating in a rapidly changing environment. These changes can have serious implications for BC. BC is, after all, a small, open, trade-dependent economy. For several decades, our province has benefited from free trade access to international markets, including the one to the south, to sell and procure goods and services. Unfortunately, recent events have highlighted our over-reliance on the US, BC's largest trade partner, and trade diversification is key to reducing that dependence and risk, and to building resilience in a volatile global economy. Fortunately, as Minister Glumac said, BC's been pursuing a trade diversification strategy to leverage our strengths, support access to international markets, and better protect us from market volatility. We have boots on the ground, market experts and contacts in many markets around the world. And this slide shows a screenshot of the homepage of our Trade and Invest BC website. You can find it at britishcolumbia.ca. We've made it pretty easy for you to remember. The site contains helpful information for BC businesses to get help exporting, explore markets, and explore programs available to BC businesses. You can use the site to get connected to BC's trade representatives in markets around the world, as Minister Glumac said. The team is there to match sellers with buyers, investors with opportunities, and companies with talented employees, whether they're selling their products or services to the people of BC or working with local communities to export products worldwide. Now let's explore some of the opportunities available to businesses within Canada. Here at home, we see how important the Canadian market is for BC businesses. In 2021, the last year for which data is available, BC exported $49 billion worth of goods and services to other provinces, even with interprovincial trade barriers. While BC exported more than twice the amount of goods internationally than it did interprovincially, when it comes to services, the majority of BC's services exports go to other provinces. BC has been a leading advocate for a strong, competitive domestic economy and has been leading the way on internal trade reduction, or internal trade barrier reduction. Now let's look at the global opportunities available to BC businesses. Canada is a trading nation, and as the minister said, Canada's negotiated 15 trade agreements that cover 50 countries. These agreements give Canadian companies access to nearly 90% of export markets, or about 1.5 billion potential consumers worldwide. Some of the biggest and most well-known trade agreements are CUSMA, the Canada-US-Mexico Agreement, the CPTPP, which is the Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership, which involves many countries, primarily in the Asia-Pacific region, although the UK is a recent joiner, and also CETA, the comprehensive agreement that we have with Europe, or the EU. These trade agreements give Canadian exporters preferential access to those markets for our products and services. And given regional and bilateral trade agreements that exist involving some of the same countries, there is some overlap. For example, Canada has free trade agreements with Mexico through both the CUSMA and through CPTPP, and businesses can choose under which FTA they want to claim preferential terms of trade. Each agreement is different. Now, as traders and exporters, you can certainly trade with and export with countries with whom we don't have trade agreements, but let me outline 4 important reasons why trading with countries that we do have an FTA with can give you a potential leg up. The first involves tariff reduction or elimination. Notwithstanding the unjustified imposition of tariffs by the US in violation of the CUSMA, a key benefit of free trade agreements generally is tariff reduction or elimination. In fact, well, sorry, that's what I just said. And typically this provides parties to the agreement with a price advantage over products imported from other countries that don't have an agreement. This FTA tariff advantage can be significant when you're talking about countries that currently have high tariff barriers. A second benefit of FTAs is the removal of non-tariff barriers, which restrict the imports or exports of goods or services through mechanisms other than tariffs. A third advantage is facilitated business entry. It makes it easier for business persons, professionals, intercompany transferees, and others to enter FTA markets for business purposes. And lastly, FTAs offer dispute resolution, agreed upon rules, and a defined process by which to resolve disputes. Now, while this isn't an exhaustive list of all the benefits of a free trade agreement, it gives you an idea of some of the key advantages. So now let's talk about how trade agreements support our services exports. These are things like travel, construction, engineering, education, IT, and much more. Trade agreements open up greater market opportunities, providing access to new potential customers. And they allow our businesses to establish a commercial presence in other countries, and often the ability for key employees to work there on a temporary basis, as I just mentioned. Now, I want to touch on the significance of the Indo-Pacific region for BC. This region is comprised of 40 countries with over 4 billion people. It stands as a global economic powerhouse with a staggering $47 trillion in economic activity. It's the world's fastest growing region and home to 6 of Canada's top 13 trading partners. The region is projected to contribute 50% of world GDP by 2040 and is home to 65% of the global population, and of course includes both China and India, with whom there's tremendous opportunity but also some risk. Not only does BC host Canada's largest and third largest ports, it also is home to the country's, BC is also the largest exporting province to that region. Our geographic location and larger proportion of trade with China relative to other provinces means the impacts of trade tensions between the US and China and/or Canada and China are more likely to impact BC. We'd welcome any input you have in that regard. Okay, now let's turn to what you might be waiting for: Canada-US trade. Now, if you've found it hard to keep track of the on-again, off-again US tariffs, tariff threats, tariff pauses, this slide provides a timeline of some of the key milestones. In summary, Canada is currently covered by 3 categories of tariffs imposed by the US. The 25% tariffs applied to all Canadian imports on national security grounds related to border security and fentanyl. While Trump subsequently paused those tariffs on CUSMA qualified imports, the net effect is that Canadian companies looking to avoid having the 25% tariff applied to their goods need to go through the CUSMA certification process, which I'll describe in a minute. Second, Canada's been hit with steel and aluminum tariffs of 25% and also auto tariffs of 25%. Canada, as you know, has retaliated against all 3 types. So based on the previous slide, some of you may be asking, what does it mean to be CUSMA compliant, and how can companies qualify for preferential treatment and access under CUSMA? So first, for the vast majority of goods, about 98% of tariff lines and over 99.9% of bilateral trade between Canada and the US, Canadian exporters can actually claim the CUSMA preference, but there's a process. They have to meet the agreement's rules of origin. Now, rules of origin are the criteria used to determine whether a good has undergone sufficient production within the region, in this case North America, to be eligible for preferential treatment. Rules of origin are unique to each trade agreement and to products within those agreements. So it's important that you work with experts to help understand that. Now, note that even if a good meets the rules of origin, it is not automatically granted duty-free tariff treatment. The benefit must be claimed by the importer on the basis of certification. So you have to be certified that you actually meet the rule of origin. Goods that do not satisfy the rule of origin are considered non-originating and are not eligible for the preferential tariff treatment. In the past, many Canadian exporters didn't bother going through the process of certification because the US at the time may have had a 2% tariff in place, and it wasn't worth the paperwork and the hassle. But now with a 25% tariff, in the absence of going through CUSMA certification, there's obviously an imperative. So let's turn now to the tariff remission process. So I talked about the retaliatory tariffs that Canada's put in place. We know that Canadian companies are impacted by those tariffs, which are often used as inputs for goods produced in Canada. So as a result, the Government of Canada has rolled out what's called the tariff remission process, which under certain circumstances allow for relief from payment of tariffs on goods imported from the US that are covered by our retaliatory tariffs. And so an email address and a template for submitting requests can be found on Finance Canada's website. Now, with regard to the specific actions taken in response to the BC tariffs, BC has been a strong, active, and constructive participant in Team Canada and supports retaliatory tariffs, and as Minister Glumac described, the actions that have been taken. In addition, BC has developed a comprehensive website with information, programs, and resources related to BC's response. You can find it at gov.bc.ca/tariffs. I encourage you to bookmark this page and check it often for the latest updates. Included on that page is information regarding supports for workers, businesses, and industries. We want, as the Minister said, we want to know how US tariffs impact your business, and we're seeking your suggestions and questions. Please fill out the online form on the britishcolumbia.ca website to provide your feedback. Finally, if you have any questions about how your business can benefit from our free trade agreements, we'd be happy to discuss. If you see or face any trade barriers to your exports in other markets, please contact us. Thank you. I'll now hand the podium over to Adriana.
This is how much taller they are than me. Good morning, everyone. My name is Adriana Carrillo, and I am with the Export Services team at Trade Invest BC under the JEDI Ministry, as you heard. Thank you very much to the Surrey Board of Trade for hosting us today, to Minister Glumac for his welcome remarks, and to Lisanne, of course, for a great overview. I'm grateful to be here. Thank you for arranging for the sunshine. And I should note, in taking the SkyTrain this morning here out to Surrey, at the station, they were cheering for the Vancouver Warriors. And I got a couple of free tickets to the final this Sunday at the Rogers Arena. So thank you, everyone, because you made this possible. As we all just heard, Lisanne walked us through the global trade landscape and how we are responding to fluctuating dynamics and new tariffs. I'd like to now shift gears and talk about why exporting remains a smart strategy for growth, even in these uncertain times. And more importantly, how Trade and Invest BC can support you in this path. What I will cover today is the continued importance of exporting, programs and pathways available to help BC companies who want to export, and how we can work together to get your business ready for global growth, including at domestic and international events. Whether you are starting to consider exports or you are already exporting and looking to diversify into new markets, our goal is to help make exporting less intimidating and more accessible. So let's dive in. I want to quickly revisit the business case for exporting as a growth strategy. We get it. Expanding outside of BC can feel daunting, especially when you are already juggling with operations, staffing, and everything else. But the opportunities are real and often well worth the effort. Let me highlight a couple of key reasons why exporting remains a good strategy for growth. Expanding your customer base. BC has over 5 million people, but compare that to the millions of potential customers worldwide, exporting can open doors to entirely new revenue streams. Increasing sales. More customers mean more sales or opportunities to sell. And in many markets, there's a premium placed on high quality or niche products, exactly what many BC companies offer. Gaining a competitive edge. Competing internationally often leads to innovation, improved efficiency, and sharper business strategies, making companies that export stronger both globally and locally. Of course, exporting also comes with challenges. Tariffs and other market entry barriers, foreign regulations, cultural nuances, and logistics are just some examples of the risks and potential headaches. But that's where we come in, to offer guidance, connections, and support to make the path for exporting smoother. There are, here we go. There are several programs available to support companies on the export journey. I want to highlight two excellent stepping stones for early-stage exporters, which were, by the way, mentioned by Minister Glumac already. First, Export Navigator, a program that offers customized advisory support through Community Futures BC. Chelsea here is here to talk more about that in a moment. There's also the Trade Accelerator Program, TAP, which is a structured 5-week program offered by the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade. They help companies develop a robust, actionable export plan, bringing in different advisors and mentors along the way. They run cohorts across various regions around the province, so keep an eye on their website for the next occasion. We've seen some BC companies use both of these programs as a springboard to launch globally. And then, of course, we have our Trade and Invest BC Export Services team at the JEDI Ministry, and that's the team that I'm on. We are the international business development arm of the provincial government. We provide export services to export-ready companies that are prepared to take their product into the global market. We work directly on the front lines with companies that have a solid foundation for growth and a desire to scale internationally. Some of you may be wondering what export-ready means. Typically, an export-ready company has several characteristics. They need to have a proven product or service, along with a clear value proposition, sometimes with domestic customers, but not always. Or necessarily. An export-ready company would have financial stability to support growth and internal capacity to scale. The company would also have an idea of where and why they want to export globally, along with a growth mindset and a willingness to learn and adapt to new markets. Importantly, before we connect a company to global opportunities, we want to see that the company has a go-to-market strategy, whether they want to do direct sales, find distributors, licensing, etc., along with a firm commitment to assigning both financial and human resources to support their expansion. Companies that graduate from TAP or that have an export navigator advisor are often well positioned to work with us because they've already done this groundwork. And yes, I'm in the right place. At Trade Invest BC, we help companies that are ready to expand globally, attract international investment, and grow our province's economy. We do this through practical hands-on support, market insights, and facilitating connections. At the end of the day, our job is to help our BC companies close deals. We measure our success by the results that our company clients achieve following our clients along their international business journey. Ultimately, we aim to see real, measurable results, whether that is closed deals, new markets entered, or increased exports. Once a company is ready to engage with us, one of our sector specialists from the team will meet to assess and discuss how we can support. We cover a wide range of industries, from natural resources to technology sectors, and where we have a unique value proposition. We also collaborate with industry associations, ecosystem partners, and federal agencies, including Global Affairs Canada, Trade Commissioner Service, to amplify our reach. One of our flagship services is our global network of trade and investment representative offices, or TIRs as we call them. We have teams in over 20 major cities across North America, Europe, and Asia, and you can see where they are located on this map. Our TIRs work with our headquarters staff in BC to provide market insights, make introductions to trusted buyers and partners, and provide on-the-ground support at trade shows and other events. Where we don't have a physical presence, and of course you can see, for example, Middle East, Africa, we work closely with the Federal Trade Commissioner Service to ensure our company clients are supported. In fact, for Asia and Mexico, our TIR offices are co-located at the embassies, consulates, and high commissions. And here we go. I mentioned earlier that companies at trade events, we support companies at trade events, and here is a list of some of the major ones. And although it is far from complete, you might believe me, there's always some more happening. For our domestic events, we work to bring in foreign buyers and investors. Our goal is to showcase what BC has to offer and to connect international delegates with BC companies while they are here. Web Summit Vancouver, taking place at the end of this month, is one example of this. For some of our key international events, we work to recruit a BC delegation, often alongside our federal partners, to go into market. And we provide business-to-business matchmaking support, networking opportunities, as well as side programming to make the most of your time in market. If you're planning to attend an international event, do get in touch with us. We might be able to support and help maximize your time in the market. Trade events are a valuable tool as they give you the chance to get visibility with global buyers, network with investors and partners, and experience international markets firsthand. That concludes my presentation. The takeaway I want to leave you with is that exporting is a powerful way to grow. It takes planning, commitment to resources, and when you're ready, we are here to support you. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here and for the couple of tickets to the Vancouver Warriors. I'll pass the floor over now to our next speaker, our bright and talented Chelsea Sang.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chelsea Sang, the Head of Advisory Services for Export Navigator. I know the program was mentioned a couple times already today, so I'm hoping you guys are curious about what we do. And I'm going to be talking about how the program helps BC businesses navigate the world of exporting, especially in the current landscape. So a little bit of background about Export Navigator and context, if for those of you that are not familiar. Export Navigator has been around for about 9 years now. We started as a pilot in 2016, serving 6 rural communities. Since then, the program has only grown. So 2 years ago, we've expanded now to urban centers, which includes the Lower Mainland, Victoria, and Kelowna. Last fall, we launched a technical specialist pilot program that I'll talk about later on. And then just recently, in January, we've joined Community Futures BC. So we're administered through CFBC, who is the Provincial Association for Community Futures Development Network of Canada. They have 34 offices throughout the province here, and they provide business services and loans to entrepreneurs in rural and remote communities. So how does the program work? We have a team of 13 export advisors that work one-on-one with BC businesses to help them grow their markets outside of BC. So this is interprovincially and internationally. All of our export advisors come from diverse backgrounds. Many of them are entrepreneurs themselves, or they've worked in an organization in an export capacity. So they have that hands-on experience that is invaluable to our clients. In the current trade situation, there may be a lot of talk of blanket tariffs, but we recognize that there's no blanket approach when it comes to exporting, and that's how the program has been designed since inception. There is no one size fits all. Our export advisors meet the businesses where they are at in their export journey and work with them on where they want to go. So this is our team of export advisors across the province. You'll see them again based in various regions. So outside of the technical expertise they have in exporting, they have that regional knowledge, understanding the challenges and opportunities that are specific to that region. So all of our advisory services are offered free of charge to our clients because we are fully funded by both the province, the Ministry of Jobs, Economic Development and Innovation, as well as the federal government through Pacifican. Even though we are called a program, there is no timeline as to how long the client can stay in the program. As long as they are engaged and working towards their exporting goals, they're welcome to continue to work with us. So again, we are working one-on-one with them step by step. We have a number of tools and resources that we use. One example is a client workbook that everybody gets when they enter the program. So a few key numbers here. Since we've started the program, we've worked with over 1,200 companies since inception. We often make referrals to partner organizations. So like Adriana mentioned, we work very closely with them on connecting our clients once they're ready to go in market, and have made several thousand referrals to our partners. And then we also host a number of educational events throughout the year, all related to different sort of export topics, and so have also hosted thousands there as well. So our technical specialist pilot program is something I mentioned earlier on, and it is a new program that gives Export Navigator clients free access to a network of specialized service providers in different areas of expertise that are commonly needed by new exporters when entering new markets. So these are areas like marketing, branding, regulatory compliance, advisory services, international legal services like an immigration lawyer or corporate lawyer, international accounting and financial services, logistics, freight and shipping advisory services, which is like a customs broker or logistics specialist. And so the list is also being continued to build as well. So we're still looking at what other areas are needed too. So I also mentioned talking about meeting the client where they're at in the export journey, and this is how we've broken down the export journey into 4 different stages. So when a company applies for our program, we do an assessment with them to see sort of where they're at in these stages and then work with them to grow along the spectrum. So the first stage is the awareness stage. So really seeing how exporting could be a growth strategy for your business. The stage 2 is the planning phase. So figuring out which target market you'd like to go into, validating that opportunity, doing the operational financial planning around that. Stage 3 is really boots on the ground in market. So visiting that market, setting up your B2B, B2G meetings there, and sort of finalizing any last minute logistics, contracts, and so forth. Stage 4 is when you're already exporting and you want to grow further into that market, or you're looking to grow into other markets. So here's a few ways that we are working with clients on minimizing their tariff risks. One is staying up to date, keeping our clients up to date, which is really key, especially with all the moving parts. We're also working on strategy planning with them, so illuminating the full impact of tariffs. This means reviewing their supply chain, their trade chain, customs, and taxation. We're also looking at bulletproofing their import and export processes. So this means CUSMA eligibility, country of origin, ensuring error-free documentation, and so forth. Working really closely with our clients' finances is a big one. So bringing accounting and financial management practices in order, performing sensitivity scenario analysis, which includes pricing, revenue, cost, and profitability. Document and contract review. So this includes things like Incoterms, payment terms, price adjustment clauses. And then last but not least, of course, is finding new markets. So Lisanne mentioned all the free trade agreements that Canada has. And so again, looking on pivoting for those that are impacted by tariffs. I think we have a really unique opportunity because as the US becomes known as a unreliable trading partner, Canada as a brand gets more popular. And I've heard from colleagues at recent trade shows that there's a lot more interest in companies at the Canadian pavilions versus the US. So what are some immediate actionable items that you can do today as a business if you are impacted by tariffs? Of course, you can contact me for the Export Navigator program and again, access our webinars as well. You don't have to be a client for that. The Trade Accelerator program has been mentioned a couple times as well. So I won't go into it too much, but the next one coming up is a women-led cohort in Vancouver taking place starting June 3rd. And the deadline to apply for that is May 20th. There's also the Can Export SME funding program, and this is a great support to help businesses find new markets. So eligible companies can receive up to $50,000 that covers 50% of the costs related to export activities. So these are things like business travel, participation in trade shows, market research, and so forth. This year, they've also made a few changes with that Can Export program, and one of them is a greater focus on market diversification. So they're specifically separating applications for those that want to target the US and those that are targeting other international markets. And the deadline for this funding program is May 31st. And then lastly is working closely with your customs brokerage if you are already exporting. Again, bulletproofing your export processes. These are things like advanced binding rulings, tariff classifications, country of origin determination, and duty relief, just to make sure that there's no surprises when you are exporting. Other support resources and programs that are available. So I don't know if you guys remember, there was that CUSMA compliance page that Lisanne covered. If any of you don't remember or don't have the notes on it, there is a whole page dedicated to it from the Trade Commissioner Service. It gives you an overview of what CUSMA compliance is, how to claim preferential treatment, and outlines the rules of origin requirements. They also do have a phone number as well where you can call and directly speak to somebody, and this is like a very high level understanding of CUSMA compliance. On April 15th as well, the federal government announced a temporary 6-month tariff relief for essential inputs. So these are goods imported that are used in manufacturing and processing, food and beverage packaging, public health, healthcare, public safety, and national security. And so this really gives businesses time to adjust their supply chains or to find domestic suppliers. Other programs related to financing is EDC's Trade Impact Program. So this helps Canadian exporters with losses from non-payment, currency fluctuations, lack of access to cash flows, and barriers to expansion. They also have a really good resource online as well, which is a tariff mitigation checklist. And again, it's like a step-by-step tool just to help you prepare your business for tariffs. BDC has a Pivot to Grow loan. So this gives a favorably priced loan to impacted business in sectors directly targeted by tariffs. And then FCC has a trade disruption customer support program, and agriculture and agri-food is one of the industries heavily impacted by the current trade situation. So this additional financing, again, helps reduce financial barriers for these businesses to help address cash flow challenges and adjust to a new operating environment. So how to stay connected with us at Export Navigator? We do have a monthly newsletter that goes out at the beginning of every month that highlights all of our events and our resources, as well as some of our key partners. And I have a QR code on the next screen that you guys can easily subscribe to, or you can do it online as well. We have 3 e-courses that are available on demand on our website. So the topics are export essentials, exporting your services, and preparing to export agri-food. If you are interested in becoming a client, you can complete a Find an Advisor form on our website, or you can also just contact me directly, and I'd be happy to chat with you and put you in touch with your regional export advisor. And then lastly, again, keeping an eye out for any of our upcoming education and webinars. We are looking at hosting 2 in June around continuing to do business in the US. I don't have the dates yet for that, but it will definitely be in our newsletters. So that's all for me. My contact details are there. Again, if you are interested in knowing any more about the program or becoming a client, and the QR code to subscribe to our newsletter. And now I'll pass it off to Serene. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Serene Wah. I'm one of the area directors in the Lower Mainland for Service Canada. We are the operational arm of Employment and Social Development Canada. Thanks for having me today. I wanted to share some information about the programs and services that Service Canada provides in support of employers and employees, and the temporary measures put in place in reaction to the current tariff environment. So a bit of a switch of focus that I'd like to share. So in response to the tariffs being imposed on goods from Canada, the Government of Canada is taking steps to defend Canada's interest, consumers, workers, and businesses. Specifically for Employment and Social Development Canada, we have programs such as the Employment Insurance Work Sharing Program that can help you avoid job losses should you be impacted by tariffs. So I wanted to share some information about the work sharing program should you find yourself to be in such a situation. So the goal of the work sharing program is to prevent layoffs within a unit when the employer is experiencing a temporary unexpected work shortage. This is achieved normally through the signing of a tripartite agreement between the employer, employees, and Service Canada. EI work sharing benefits are paid to eligible employees whose EI eligibility is determined once they apply. This provides income support in the form of work sharing benefits to employees eligible for EI regular benefits who agree to a temporary reduced work week. The objective is for the employees under the agreement to return to a normal level of business activity at the end of the agreement, which is normally a maximum of 26 weeks. The program is really a win-win, and there's advantages for both employers and employees. Specifically for employers, they really get to maintain their staff and minimize further disruption to the operation. For employees, they remain employed and continue to receive their existing employee benefits and receive EI work sharing income support for the hours not worked due to the reduction. In addition, the EI weeks paid under the work sharing agreement do not actually reduce the number of weeks that one would be entitled to under regular benefits. The Canada Employment Insurance Commission, or the EI Commission, may authorize Service Canada to approve work-sharing applications from employers based on special criteria through temporary measures created to support employers and employees affected by significant unexpected economic conditions or natural disasters or states of emergency. In recent years, we've seen work-sharing temporary special measures have been introduced on several occasions to support impacted businesses. Most recently, in December 2024, the Commission approved special measures for employers affected by the 2024 wildfires, as well in Jasper, as well as the Bunnabanshee Cree Nation in Manitoba. The Commission recently approved temporary special measures to support sectors and firms directly or indirectly affected by the imposition of tariffs. They are in place. They were effective March 7th, 2025, and will be in place until March 6th, 2026. Those special measures include expansion of employer eligibility. So businesses that have been in operation in Canada for 1 year are able to apply versus the normal 2 years. Not-for-profit and charitable organizations experiencing a reduction in revenue can also apply. Cyclical or seasonal employers can apply at this time. And there needs to be a reduction of less than 10% are able to apply up to, and it can actually exceed 60% of a reduction overall. There's also expanded worker eligibility criteria that's been put in place. Seasonal employees are able to apply now, and those assisting in the employer's recovery efforts, which normally they're not eligible. So as mentioned, the Commission approved special measures for employers directly or indirectly affected by the tariffs. This includes US tariffs and Chinese tariffs. The flexibilities include greater access to the work-sharing program. The duration of work-sharing agreements has been extended to 76 weeks versus the 36 weeks. And we're removing the requirement to serve the mandatory cooling off period as well. It focuses recovery measures on supporting business viability in the face of tariffs instead of returning to normal business as usual as the normal focus. So a bit of detail in relation to work sharing, although please feel free to come chat with me if you're experiencing such a situation. So following an application, a work sharing agreement may be established again between the employer, the employee, employees, and Service Canada. EI eligible workers will work a reduced work week while the employer recovers, and they receive EI work sharing benefits to partially replace lost income over the time frame of the agreement. The agreement must be established for a minimum of 6 weeks, and temporarily we are able to have an agreement for up to 76 weeks. There is also, oh, I'm not even moving. I'm so sorry. Wow. Okay, let's get caught up. Here we are. My apologies. That was probably hard to follow with so much information. There's also been temporary changes to employment insurance to ensure that those impacted are getting will receive benefits sooner for longer with no requirement to exhaust their severance pay. So there are 3 temporary measures coming into effect for employment insurance. They're going to be automatically implemented when a client applies. There's no need to ask for such temporary measures. The 3 of them include waiving of the 1-week waiting period, no allocation of monies paid on separation, and a boost to the regional rate of unemployment. Okay. Back on track. So waiving of the 1-week waiting period. So normally the first week of a claim for benefits is unpaid, kind of similar to an insurance deduction. Under the temporary measures, the client is payable as soon as they stop working. I'll note that speed of service, it's still 21 to 28 days to process an application, but again, they'll go right into pay once it's processed. There's also, under the temporary measure, client is payable as soon as they stop working. Normally, severance pay, vacation pay that they're paid out when they're laid off or let go, it impacts when they actually are able to start their benefits. Again, in this situation, no matter how much the employer pays, will be starting their EI benefits in week 1. This measure impacts claims that start between March 30th and October 11th of this year. The rate of unemployment will also be manually boosted during a period of time. So before the temporary measure was put in place, the number of weeks a client requires to qualify for EI and the number of weeks of benefits they receive are determined by the regional rate of unemployment. So during a period of time, right now, regions with rates of unemployment below 6.1%, typically larger cities, will be bumped up to 7.1%, and regions with higher rates of employment will also be boosted. This is just an example of that boost that we're going to be seeing, and that will essentially increase the amount of weeks that an individual would qualify for, and ease of how quickly they'll be able to qualify for EI. Just some general information. If you are seeing a reduction in your business, please do consult our Canada.ca website. I also have a community liaison team that's connected with a number of businesses in the Surrey area and actually all throughout kind of East Lower Mainland. We'd be happy to provide more specific work sharing agreement information. Please feel to reach out to me after the presentation today. Thank you. Sorry for the little mix-up.
Thank you, Serene. Thank you, Lisanne, Adriana, and Chelsea. That was great. I'm going to close this. Okay. Oh, I'm sure my team can come and fix it. There she is. Okay. All right. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention that while I have you all here as a captive audience, that Surrey will be the biggest city by 2030. So I just want you to just get that deep in your soul so that any of the programs you're doing, you think to yourself, I should come to Surrey and that should be my base. Pacific Can is here. The Surrey Board of Trade is here. Anything to add, Mayor Locke?
It's a great big business. The only place we can build industrial land in Metro Vancouver.
Oh, yes.
Is right here in Surrey.
That's right, the critical lack of industrial land, but guess who has the most of it? Surrey. So the Surrey Board of Trade also does a certificate of origin for businesses, and we're more than happy to host any of your programs. So I've made my pitch. We also have Invest Surrey. Invest Surrey is doing great things, and we have a very active BIA community as well. So now I am going to call for questions from the audience. Please don't be shy. I have questions myself, but we have a microphone, or are we do. Oh, we have a question. Look at that. They'll just stand up. So what I ask is that you state your name, your company, and then ask your question. And I also, of course, ask that questions be brief and respectful. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Wale, and I serve as the coordinator of the British Columbia Online Business Support Program Initiative. Before the imposition of US tariffs, many of us underrepresented people were already struggling to secure employment due to a surplus of job seekers and limited opportunities. The tariffs introduced under President Trump only worsened an already challenging situation. What step is your office taking to engage individuals who are currently unemployed but have viable business ideas, yet lack funding? That's my first question. how do you support market research efforts in countries where the BC government maintains a presence? So I have a business idea I want to export, right? So we talked about funding. That is the first challenge. The second challenge is how do you help with market research? What that means is connect to other industries based on the problem the entrepreneur is trying to solve. Now, what strategies are in place to attract both domestic and international investors? That's the third question. And then lastly, how do you assist aspiring entrepreneurs in accessing pre-seed funding? Pre-seed funding, which is once you have the business plans done, perhaps you have a mock-up or something you're doing technology, how do you access pre-seed funding, not Series A funding, both within Canada and internationally? Thank you.
Okay, that was a mouthful.
Yeah, I can take you one after the other.
Okay, so why don't we focus on what opportunities are there for market research and funding for aspiring entrepreneurs?
Hi, thank you so much for your question. I'll point you direct to the services offered to companies that are, well, in this case, if they are looking to export, then Export Navigator or TAP, of course, help. Small Business BC, which is not operating currently, but has been the key arm, and now Community Futures BC to support companies that are not yet established or not still doing sales. Good question in terms of how Trade and Invest BC, as I mentioned in the presentation, our clients are export-ready companies, so we don't intervene at a very early stage. However, there are typically many associations and industries, whether it's in the municipalities, that assist growing businesses. In terms of funding, I'll just add how while there's some government services funded by the province or federal government, like Export Navigator, that makes these advisors available to you, often through industry associations is where businesses find that pre-seed funding. And of course, depends on the, if it's a clean tech venture or life sciences, etc. Connecting to the community in that specific sector is the best venue to find who are the investors interested in that sector. Typically, they are knowledgeable, right, and have a vested interest in that, growing the sector.
Okay. Yes, another question?
Sorry, I just
Oh,
wanted to add
sorry,
on to
Chelsea.
that. So because for earlier stage companies, that's sort of where Export Navigator comes in. On the market research piece, especially if it's around validating a target market or figuring out which market you want to go into, that's definitely something our export advisors help the clients with. So they help with the market research. We have a lot of resources that we either reports or databases that we use to support the clients in this area. But also if it is something that is very specific to that market, that's probably where we would engage or refer them to our technical specialists pilot program, where we can actually engage a market research specialist to assist with this, and that time is compensated up to 5 hours. And then also in assisting entrepreneurs in pre-seed funding, just funding programs in general, pre-seed or Series A, I think you mentioned, we work with clients sort of on all the different funding programs. So A, like keeping our eye out for all the programs because there's so many to keep track of, and then B, supporting their application. So whether that means reviewing it, helping them revise it so that it is has a higher chance of success, that's something that our advisors do.
So the question was around procurement, government procurement purchasing from companies here in BC. How are we supporting that?
Okay, I'll try. My understanding is that what the province has said is that BC will purchase from BC and Canada first. I don't think there's a sort of ban per se on procurement.
You know what procurement goes on if they're going to be
That I don't know. BC Bid could probably tell you. I would imagine they have the latest information on that.
Maybe we could just have an overall answer on how BC companies can bid on provincial projects and services.
Yeah, I think BC Bid is the go-to source. Procurements are put on that website and they'll have the information available.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Yes, sir.
I just wanted to add in terms of procurement for the businesses that are in the food and beverage sector, there's specific supports and connected with the BC Food and Beverage Association. It's on their website is a link to register your business so that not only those government agencies that need food can access your businesses and get the Buy BC label on your products. There's also database set up for BC businesses to get their suppliers and others in their supply chain from BC. So definitely agri-food businesses should register there. Thank you.
Adriana, can you tell us more about that program? The getting your business on that list.
Yeah, it's all available online, and you registered to be on the database of suppliers and companies that have a product. You can request and also make clear what's available. It's a searchable database. So if I'm looking for a new supplier of a certain oil, chemical element for my food coloring or something, that's the database. BC Connection, I believe it's called, but it's available from the BC Food and Beverage website.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to add on a broader level for those that are interested in procurement opportunities. There is PAC, so Procurement Assistant Canada is a really great resource in terms of education. They have a lot of webinars around procurement opportunities for those that are just considering the idea.
And Minister.
And just a quick note to mention that this is an evolving situation, obviously, right? We have the legislation that's being discussed right now, which will impact procurement, and also the interprovincial trade is being worked on right now, which could create more opportunities within Canada to be a priority company for procurement in other provinces maybe as well. So,
Third time's a charm. Over to you, sir.
Okay. Hi, my name's Zahid. I'm from Boston Consulting Group and Delta Chamber of Commerce. You guys mentioned earlier about exporting to East Asia, Southeast Asia. There's 4 billion people in that region. But my understanding of that region is they're a manufacturing hub, they export heavy, and their cost of labor is much cheaper than ours. So in your experience, what are the types of goods and services that we can actually export to them cost efficiently and that they'll demand from an economy like ours?
It definitely varies by market, by country, and that's part of what the trade agreements try and do, is try and assess what each country's what we call offensive and defensive interests are. What products are they looking for that we provide? So for instance, for India, Canada provides a lot of pulses, and other countries in Asia, there's demand, quite a bit of demand for agricultural products, potash, those sorts of products. If we're talking about smaller manufactured products, it's honestly, it's really sort of country by country. Yeah. Anybody have a?
That's a good point, because, and a very interesting question. Thank you, Said, was it? In terms of where are we competitive and where do we have a unique value proposition? Certainly, just in general, for example, yes, Southeast Asia grows a lot of vegetables and have a lot of the food processing, but they don't have the cherries and blueberries we have. And we do export those, right? We export a lot of seafood. We export a lot of our technology that is really at the forefront globally. And a lot of these also trade deals occur as a result of the people-to-people's connection, right? So maybe, yeah, there's a lot of things around the world, but it's not where I have my cousin, and that's a bit of the benefit of Canada being being so multicultural that a lot of people are able to establish those connections. You know, our hard-bite chips are in several countries of Southeast Asia. They grow a lot of potatoes themselves, but nobody makes hard-bite chips the way we do them. And of course, our India is such a big agricultural country. We are currently, for example, one of our companies, they made an arrangement with India government to co-manufacture harvesting technologies for the market, right? So there's definitely a lot of things we do, aerospace, ocean technologies, a lot of the sectors, life sciences. Our nutraceuticals have a very good reputation in market, especially in other countries don't have such regulatory strength that Canada is famous for. So there's definitely a lot of room to contribute to those economies. And also the strategy of many businesses is not just to manufacture in Canada and export, but to find partners to co-manufacture sometimes in market and therefore become more competitive.
And just to add to that, what is BC's kind of strength? Like when you compare our province to many of the other provinces, we have a clean energy economy here, and we have a lot of innovation that is happening, and a lot of interest from other companies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, for example. And they're looking to BC to provide some of those solutions. So that's one example. And many of the other things are kind of maybe niche things that we just have to find those connections. Like, for example, there was a pilot program that they put in place in Vietnam, I believe, for blueberries, and created an excellent market for blueberries. And with China putting tariffs on seafood, there's opportunities in other Southeast Asian countries for our seafood products. So there's many, we just have to find those connections. So yeah.
Yeah, and just one other thing, that website I mentioned, britishcolumbia.ca, which is the Trade and Invest BC website, it had that section for BC businesses. And then if you drill down into there, it does describe various markets and what some of the opportunities are in those markets.
Okay. Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, good morning.
Name, organization, and then your question, please.
I'm Catherine Zhang. I came from a Best Service International Freight Forwarding Company, and we run this business over 22 years already from China. And we contribute here, set up our branch in Canada over 3 years. So we kind of know the global logistics and the freight forwarder business, how to run it. And if in future, if the government or Surrey Board of Trade, you need any support from consulting or something between China, Canada, or freight forwarding, we are more than happy to support. And we are noticed that we pay a lot of attention on export business, but we know that if we want to strengthen our economic, we also focus on go and back. So I'm more curious about what the program of the supporting on import maybe from government side. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. It's a sort of a two-way street, and we know with global supply chains, a lot of inputs from elsewhere are sometimes even used in products produced in BC and then exported. That same website that I mentioned, it does deal sort of with both elements as well as investment.
Well, then let me ask my next question, and then I'll bring it back to the audience. And perhaps Minister Glumac, you can answer this. How is BC leveraging its strong Asia-Pacific ties to secure new trade agreements or partnerships that could offset tariff impacts from other regions?
Well, I was mentioning some of the strengths of British Columbia, and one of our strengths is our diversity. We have people from many countries in Southeast Asia that live here and have connections to their regions, like Korea and Philippines and Japan, many more, China. In our ministry, we also have a parliamentary secretary of Asia Pacific Trade who has many connections within specifically the Korean business community. So we're trying to leverage those relationships and those connections and obviously we have trade and investment reps in all those areas, and so as much as we can to leverage that those communities that are here is one way that we're trying to do that. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add. And of course, yeah, we're in the process of organizing trade missions right now, and I can't say too much about that yet, but stay tuned on where we're going and what we're doing. And I mean, we know that Southeast Asia is a very, very important market. You know, there's a trade a free trade agreement being worked out right now, and Indonesia, for example, is a new market that is one of the biggest markets in Southeast Asia, interestingly, and a lot of opportunity to grow into that market. So we'll be exploring those through our trade missions. Yeah.
It's true. A lot of the manufacturing of lower cost goods is moved to Indonesia from China, as China focuses on higher end manufacturing.
Maybe just one other thing. So the group I'm part of, we deal with disputes, but also with trade negotiations. And there is an active negotiation going on right now with ASEAN, which is the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, many countries within ASEAN. So one of the responsibilities we have is to engage with the BC business community to help identify potential interests in those markets, and frankly, sometimes what our defensive issues might be, and then communicate that to the negotiators in Ottawa. These agreements are negotiated at the federal level, but we always want to make sure BC is well represented.
Are there any other questions from the audience? Yes, please go ahead.
This is a specific question for Surrey. My name is Lynn Brisden. I'm with the YMCA Self-Employment Program. I know I'm going to get questions about whether people would be qualified for a self-employment program if they're on the work-share program through the
Thank you. It's a good question. I'll have to refer you to some of our resources to actually ask the specific question of probably one of our officers. So we can connect afterwards and I can give you some resources on it. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yes, Roger.
Roger Steers, on board of directors, RJC Engineers. One thing I haven't heard much talk about, it maybe it's outside of this, but on the strengthened portion, there's opportunity with very well-trained, smart workforce, people, professionals in places they don't want to be any longer. And the opportunities that we may present as a nation for those people to come, where we would strengthen what our workforce looks like. Has there been any, do you have any insights or anything that may have appeared on your radar in that we would actually strengthen what our service proposition is?
Are you talking about immigration of skilled labor into
Doctors,
okay.
Engineers, lawyers, things that we are very short of.
Well, I know that, you know, the province, I mean, not specifically to the U.S. in the context that you're talking about. I haven't heard about that, but we have been working on streamlining international credentialing, specifically on doctors and nurses. And we have agreements with some countries where we accept, you know, their training, and we're making it easier for foreign trained doctors and nurses to navigate through the process, making it more streamlined, everything. So, and we've had a lot of success with that, with doctors in particular. And there, I know that, you know, it's maybe more of a federal question in regards to, you know, bringing someone from another country to work here. Provincially, we don't have very much control over that, but certainly it is an opportunity for sure. So I don't know if anyone else has it.
I would just, Roger, take a guess on the fact that we might see some new targets or changes to the current legislation. Fortunately, Canada is a country open to immigration, and that's the reason I'm here, along with some other people in the audience. we have the BC Provincial Nominee Program as part of the JEDI Ministry, and through this program, employers can make the case to accelerate the entry of skilled workers. So definitely in this day and age, not only many of our businesses are being compelled to move operations into the US so that they can keep some of their clients there, but there's an open window to get more of that, those PhDs that are now being expelled from the US, for example, into Canada. And the businesses have that tool through the provincial nominee program or at federal level to make a case to have those workers come faster. Again, I would suspect that is one of the many things being reviewed by government on how to, take advantage of the opportunity and bring a stronger, increase the strength of our labor force here.
So let's dive deeper into that. So what is the province and all of your organizations doing to help immigrant and newcomer-led businesses in Surrey and White Rock in particular better understand and navigate the complex tariff regulations and export opportunities? Is there a focus for newcomers or immigrants? And can there be if there isn't? Who gets to answer my difficult question?
I don't know.
I would say, yeah, I don't know. It's obviously I'm not from the unit that can answer that. What I know is that once somebody comes to the province, they are become, Canadian or BC business with access to the resources set up for BC businesses. I'm not familiar with newcomer programs because it's not the focus of my job.
Okay.
I mean, one thing I can say is that our trade and investment representatives across the world investment is a big part of their job, and trying to, bring new investment to British Columbia means bringing people to British Columbia. I had a conversation recently with a trade and investment representative from, I think it was Singapore. And they were talking to a company who was looking at, investing in San Francisco versus British Columbia, and they decided to invest in British Columbia because we have a reciprocal tax agreement. San Francisco doesn't have that, so we have some advantage in that way. And so I know that our network supports bringing people here and navigating all of that. So, yeah.
That reminds me of a question I had from one of the consul generals I met with in the last couple of weeks. And she said, we have a gentleman who wants to move 10% of his wealth to Canada. Why should they choose BC? And so, of course, we're competing with the other provinces. And so I know this isn't exactly we're focused on exports, but if we think about foreign direct investment, competitiveness, perhaps at a high level, you can talk about why, what is the sales pitch I can give people to bring them here?
For curated speaking points, I would direct you to our BritishColumbia.ca website. We have a split for investors for BC businesses, so the export focus is there.
Okay.
And in the investor tab, which is information focused on an international audience, you can find the summaries and then the clickable links to go into sectors and deeper into, infrastructure. Our infrastructure pitch would be very different from services or somebody that wants to operate in agriculture. But that is our FDI kind of focus page.
That's great. Thank you.
I mean, maybe put them in touch with me, and I'll be happy to chat with them.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, because there's so many advantages in being in British Columbia. We have a extremely advanced workforce in terms of the high caliber of innovation that happens here. It depends on what they want to do here in British Columbia, but we're on the West Coast. We have connections to the Asian market. We have, like I mentioned before, all clean energy infrastructure and the work that we're doing here. It's a wonderful place to live if you're comparing, Alberta, for example. People say they moved to Alberta, but I mean, where would you want to live? Like it's amazing here in British Columbia in so many ways. And comparing it to the United States, there's so many advantages. The workforce here is cheaper than in the U.S. depending on what sector you're in and things like that. There's so many different advantages. It really depends on what their focus is, and we can kind of drill down on that and talk about that. But yeah. So.
Okay. I will connect you. Sounds good. Does the audience have? Go ahead, Rory.
Rory Morton, KSW Lawyers, Chair of the Surrey Board of Trade. Great job, Casa. Feedback from the boss. Question for the Minister. There's been, when the tariffs were first announced, there was a lot of talk and a lot of scrambling about international trade, right? So east-west, what you're talking about, bringing down provincial barriers. It seems to me that a lot of the issues are as between the provinces themselves rather than at the federal level. You spoke about the legislation that's working its way through the ledge right now. I'm just kind of curious where that might be, not the legislation itself, but just the process is sitting, because there was a lot of conversation and then really nothing's been. I appreciate there's been an election and everything, but I'm just curious as to where that generally sits at a high level.
Well, in regards to the interprovincial trade, our minister, Minister Gibson, is sitting on a committee for internal trade within British Columbia, and they've had 4 meetings so far in 2025. There's been a lot of discussion and a lot of willingness to work together and a lot of progress. A lot of provinces have been bringing forward their own versions of how to reduce these trade barriers. Like Nova Scotia had this reciprocal agreement. BC, we're choosing to do basically a broader, we're not requiring reciprocity on that. We're just opening it up. But I think now with the election federally being finished, and from what I'm hearing, on the federal level, there's going to be a real focus on bringing this all together and finalizing kind of how we're going to do this. The work that we've done so far is going to feed into that federal approach, and there's never been a time like this, a willingness to break down these trade barriers and mutual recognition of different jobs and being able to move between provinces and all of that. There's never been the level of willingness that there is now. So it's really exciting, actually. It's going to create. I mean, we saw that slide with the goods, like 19 billion, I think it was, interprovincially, and 42 billion or something. Are those numbers right? And just imagine if we open up, like that's 19 billion now with all of these trade barriers. Just imagine the market when it could be substantial. It could be a real opportunity for BC businesses. So.
I think maybe on the surface level, it seems like not much is happening, but just behind the scenes, there is a lot going on, and I can definitely attest to that. Like, our team of export advisors has been very engaged with different levels of government in terms of providing feedback that they're hearing from their clients where they need support. I think just this week, one of our export advisors on the island is meeting with Ontario's version of their Trade and Invest rep to talk about how to, again, better support the trade between Vancouver Island businesses to Ontario. So there is a lot of talk, and I think, again, with the election, it's just probably been a little bit quiet.
Just one more quick thought. I think Minister Glumac referenced it. BC's really been a leader on this issue and has been for several years. And I can tell you, one of my colleagues, our director who's responsible for internal trade, who's been slogging away at this, beating the drum for years, there's not just talk, there is a lot of action going on and activity. So I think stay tuned.
That's great. Saeed, you had a question?
Yeah.
there's a lot of talk about bringing down the interprovincial trade barriers and opportunities, but how do you guys view the risk? Because we can't hide from the fact that Ontario is more well capitalized than us, and there's probably larger businesses in Ontario. So do you guys have any concerns about what opening interprovincial trade will do to businesses coming into BC from Ontario?
I mean, we'll have to see. We'll have to navigate that as we get to it. But with Ontario being such a big market, it also creates a huge customer for BC businesses. So there's always like two sides of that. Of course, there'll be more competition, but there'll be a lot of new markets to compete in, right? And if you're a strong business in your sector, it could be amazing, right? So yeah.
Okay, we have time. Oh, go ahead.
Just a very quick comment, because your question goes at a much kind of greater, deeper level also of the philosophical reasoning between what we are seeing happening in the world, protectionism versus open trade. And I think for the most part, a lot of people in Canada really believe in, being a country of open trade and open to the opportunities that offers. If we close up and get more protection, like is so popular now down south, we have seen through history how also that can lead to companies that are then all of a sudden not able to compete globally because they are cuddled or held in a way that makes them lose competitiveness. So maybe one stretch for some businesses would be, how do we compete with Ontario, but in surpassing the challenge, now you are more open to the world. And it was one of my speaking points about exporting, how these kind of businesses very often become stronger globally and domestically because of just having to stretch themselves more. It's a bit of a philosophical question, and of course it has a bearing on many families and people, but on and often, especially in the later decades, it's been, I think, a better strategy to not provide so many supports that the companies might be less incentivized to thrive.
Okay, and we have time for one last question in the back, sir.
Hello, sir.
A short question, yes? Okay.
What are your strategies to attract foreign investment into British Columbia to help facilitate export?
Big question. It's a short one, big question.
Strategies. I
So-
just want, as a politician, you go door knocking, you go advert and all of that. Like, what are your strategies to attract foreign investment into BC?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we have a wide network of trade investment representatives around the world, and I think arranging the trade missions out into these markets and working with our local communities from different countries and going into these new markets, like we have to have a presence. Like that's the key thing. We have to be on the ground, in these markets to build these relationships and to talk directly with companies and make the case for why BC is a great place to invest. And depending on what the sector is, there's many advantages in doing that. And so our trade investment representatives on the ground are doing this right now. And as I mentioned, with our trade diversification strategy, we are enhancing that. We're growing and building on that strategy and looking at what are the new markets right now in this current geopolitical context where there's new opportunities that are coming up right now. And so there's a lot of work going on, and we're very it's a challenging time, but it's also a time that I think there's opportunities now that haven't existed before. So we have to take advantage of those opportunities right now, and that's the work that we're doing. So
We know where to put these opportunities, like how do we get information about
You can connect with our team. I would also mention, of course, Jocelyn, you mentioned Invest Surrey. We have Invest Vancouver. We have several organizations that focus on investor services. Within Trade and Invest BC, there's the Invest arm. No one is here from the team, but that team reviews the nature of the strategic the investment inquiries, because we also want to ensure that those that are supported actively by the team are strategic and good for the province. So it's just not a blanket come take over kind of approach, but we really apply the strategic lens to those. But very importantly, we also have, and Minister mentioned the work of our trade investment representatives abroad, both the BC trade reps as well as the Canadian trade commissioners. We have, I mentioned, Web Summit Vancouver coming to this to our town at the end of this month. Our government and other agencies, Innovate BC and others, work closely to bring such an international show to our waters. And our trade investment reps have been, over the past few months, recruiting investment delegations from Taiwan and Mexico and Europe and India and US and everywhere where we have an office, but also trade commissioners where we don't have an office are bringing international delegations to meet with BC companies and to make the case for why they should be investing in BC. Again, and giving them that in-person experience. So through the, we used to have the BC Tech Summit, and so through events and also sometimes through targeted hosting of international investors and delegations is that we build a case for British Columbia. Typically, these are recruitment happening abroad, so you wouldn't necessarily know in the province, right? We provide a list of BC businesses depending on the investors' interests to facilitate the matchmaking. But checking on our website or with our team for leads onto that.
Oh, no, I got to cut you off because I have a question still. You can talk to them after, okay? So the Surrey Board of Trade actually has signed agreements with 30 different consulates, including Ireland. We have an MOU with 30 different countries, and that's growing. So I invite you to come and talk to the Surrey Board of Trade for opportunities to invest and export, and we can help you make those connections. So my last question, and I want to give the minister opportunity for the last word, is, and this is a leading question, I will admit. The soon-to-be Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade is a collaborative agency. How does the province plan to work with us to build a coordinated local response to trade challenges?
Well, I think we're off to a good start here. So let's stay in touch, and as we move forward, we welcome your expertise and the connections that you have with, as I mentioned before, there's so many amazing businesses within Surrey, and it's going to be the biggest city in BC, and so we recognize how important that is, and we want to work with you. So let's keep doing that.
Okay, that's great. Good answer. We would love to see some Surrey and White Rock businesses on future trade missions. And in the future, I'd love to have you join us on our industry bus tour, which is a fascinating, in-depth look at the businesses here. You will be amazed. So that's all the time we have for questions. I want to thank our panelists, Lizanne Jackson, Adriana Carrillo, Chelsea Sang, Serene Wah, and of course our keynote speaker, Minister Rick Glumac, for taking the time to be with us today, answer our questions, and providing valuable information that will help our members grow their businesses. I'd also like to offer a special thank you to the Ministry of Jobs, Economic Development, and Innovation, JEDI, for bringing this event to our community. And as always, my hat goes off to my staff team, who are so incredible. Please, yes. My love grows for them every day, and thank you to you, our audience, for your engagement and participation. So I'm going to take 1 minute before you go to tell you about some events that we have coming up, because May is chock full. The staff thought, Jocelyn doesn't need sleep, let's just do this. So May 6th, we have The Digital Impact Learning Lab, A Leader's Guide to Mental Health, very important topic. May 8th, Networking at Night. These get sold out, so get your tickets early. May 13th, Beyond Handshakes, Modern Strategies for Networking. How do you not be awkward in the networking situations? May 15th, Surrey's Top 25 Under 25, if you want to feel like, what was I doing when I was 24? May 20th, LNG Mining and Forestry, BC's Natural Resource Industries with Minister Brar. May 22nd, Building BC's Future Minister Diana Gibson will be here. And May 30th, the BC Minister of Post-Secondary Education and Future Skills, Ann Kang, will be here. So, thank you so much. Please,
What was the event after
May 8th, Networking at Night.
the one after?
May 13th, Handshakes. Yes, Impact Learning Lab, Beyond Handshakes, Modern Strategies for Effective Networking with Patrick. Yes, Patrick Van Pander. Okay, so thank you all for attending, and please make it a great business day. There you go.